I am a runner, a slow runner, mind you, but a runner nonetheless. My first long-distance race was over 50 years ago in the fall of 1972. I had joined my school's cross-country team. I went to a small high school, so yes, they would take anyone. And they took me. I wasn't very fast, but I could finish cross-country races, 3 miles or so, I could finish. So I was eligible to be on the team. I never came in first or second or even, to be honest, in the top 10. But it was, I've always looked back at that time and thinking, running like that was good for me. And throughout my high school career, I eventually became captain of the cross-country team. Yes, I did. Yeah, thank you. Skill was not involved in becoming captain, but I also ran track in the springs. I competed in the mile and the 2 mile. I never came in first or second or third or even in the top 5 of any race. Well, I actually once. The coach came to me in a rush at a meet and said, "John, I need you to run the 880, which is 2 times around the track. I need you to run the 880." And I said, "Okay." I had never run the 880 before. And I went up to the starting line. I mean, it was just like that fast. And I realized there was only one other person in the race. So I came in second. Yeah. I earned points for my team. I think that was the only time I actually earned points for my team. So after a kind of a weird injury, I stopped running in the 1990s, and I actually only began about 8 years ago. Nowadays, I run at least 4.5 miles. Sometimes I run as much as 10 miles, but still not very fast. And I tell myself that I may not be skilled, but at least I have endurance. So in my opinion, true skill in track and field, I love watching track and field. True skill is displayed by those who compete in the decathlon. Have you ever watched a decathlon? Do you know what that is? The decathlon is 10 events in one. 100-meter run, the long jump, shot put, high jump, 400-meter run, 110-meter hurdles, discus, pole vault, javelin, and at the end of it all, the 1,500-meter run. The event takes 2 days. It's a lot for one person to do all those events. And at the Olympic level, in each of those 10 events, their participants basically function at a world-class level. I mean, they can do amazing things. Can you imagine how tiring it is to do the decathlon? I know someone who was really good at this, and he described pushing his body so hard that he nearly passed out during that last race. Total and utter exhaustion at the end of the 10 events. It strikes me that some of us might feel like we're in that 1,500-meter race right now at the conclusion of a decathlon. We have lived our lives at a dead run from one event to the next. Work, school, sports for the kids, music lessons, shopping, more work. Dead run is an apropos description because though we're running, we feel dead inside, tired, weary, bone weary. Talk to anyone, almost anyone these days, and try this. Ask them how they are. How are you really doing? Most people will answer tired. Or maybe they'll say, I'm busy, too busy. That's the normal answer. And I wonder, is this the American way? Is this how we do things now? I mean, there's a lot of us who are, maybe we take our citizenship and our role in this country for granted. I know some of you don't. Javed and Farzana just became citizens just this week. Congratulations. Yeah. But I think about that. I think about people who are coming to America. Is this the life that we're suggesting people live? Have our lives become a track and field event? Is our goal to see how tired we can get? One of the reasons I love to travel is to see how other people live their lives. And really, we Americans have this mistaken idea that the way we do things is best. But this is far from the truth. For instance, I have not seen this kind of frenetic activity in the lives of most people who live in Africa. Sure, they work hard, but they also rest. They take time for important things. After most meals in Senegal, people go lie down and actually go to sleep for a few minutes. Amazing. I imagine our lifestyle of hectic running all the time is actually a modern phenomenon. I don't know that for sure, but having never lived in another era. But I do know this. People are tired running like rats through a maze, often with as much of a clue as to the reason for the running as a common lab rat. There is this pressure driving us faster and faster, the pressure of responsibilities, the stress of our jobs, and the urgency to get it all done. I think for many of us, restlessness and pressure have become a cycle that we're so deep into that we can't see it for what it is. We're too busy reaching for something we don't think we have. Sometimes we don't even realize we're doing it. We were dog sitting one time, a dog of a family member. Maybe I should leave the dog's name out of this so nobody will be offended. But this dog was the epitome of restless. I remember watching in the evening. We were sitting, we were watching television, and then the dog would ask to go outside. And so we would open the door and let the dog outside. And then the dog would ask to come in, like almost immediately. And then would sit down for a couple of minutes and then start to kind of get restless and walk around and then ask to go outside again. And it was just, do any of you have dogs like this? In and out, in and out, in and out, all the time. Finally, I just said, sit down and be quiet. And then I looked at this dog and I thought, I think maybe I act like that sometimes. Just always on the move. I can never sit down and just stop. Sometimes I even feel guilty at the end of the day when I finally sit on the couch to catch my breath. I feel guilty. So what can be done? Is there a way out of this cycle? Is there rest? I mean, is there really rest for the weary? I believe the answer we hear from this text today in Matthew is a resounding yes. There is rest. However, for many of us, our faith even has not offered much help in this area. If anything, we've gotten mixed messages about what we need to do for God and how to trust God for what's truly important. I would like to read the text one more time this morning with what I've just said in mind, but I want to read it from the Message translation by Eugene Peterson. Listen to it one more time. Are you tired? Worn out? Burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn how to live freely and lightly. From the first word, this is an invitation. Come, Jesus says, looking for a response. Yes, I will come. To approach him, to say yes to the offer, to walk through the door marked rest. How does rest sound right about now to you? To me, it sounds great. I need this. I'm a victim here. I'm a victim of my own delusions of indispensability. You know what I mean? That unless I move faster and faster, that nothing will ever get accomplished. And I've often given in to the assumption that if I keep running, if I keep busy enough, that I'll catch up in that rat race. And right now, rest sounds really good. Show me where to sign up. And then Jesus says something that doesn't seem at first to make any sense. He says, "Take my yoke upon you." Now, hold on a minute. A yoke? Yokes are for beasts of burden. Yokes are used for work. What kind of rest is this, wearing a yoke? Dale Bruner says, "Isn't this what the weary and overwhelmed need least?" One would expect Jesus to say, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you a mattress, a vacation." But a yoke? It's summertime. Vacation season, right? We tend to think vacations will solve our stress problems. Just get me out of here. If only I could get a vacation. But there are problems with that. I mean, number one, vacations eventually end, right? And two, I must admit that even on some vacations, I have become restless and I long to get back home. Many retirees find a similar thing to be true. For decades, they plan and work toward a time when they can finally quit work, only to find that when the time comes, they go nuts with restlessness. But Jesus is not offering retirement here or a vacation, because rather a new way of approaching our lives of responsibility and leisure, work and play. It's a new way of carrying burdens. There's a legend that Jesus' carpentry shop made the best yokes in the whole area, and that people came from all over to buy the best yokes that money could buy. In those days, as now, shops had their signs above the door, and it's been suggested that the sign above the door of Jesus' carpentry shop in Nazareth may have read, "Our yokes fit perfectly." Jesus may be using a picture here from the carpenter shop where he'd worked during those silent years that we really don't know much about, those first 30 years of his life. A yoke. He's saying, "Take my yoke upon you." So this is what he offers those who are weary. Not a vacation, not a nap, but to stay in the game, accepting a yoke as a way of staying engaged, but to share the load with another. Yokes are often designed for a team of oxen too. You know what yokes look like? I think we have a picture. Here's a yoke. Up on the left-hand side it says Jim, and over there it says Charlie. Apparently they had names back in 40-something, 18. Anyway, Barnes Township, Cape County. It's an ancient yoke. This kind of thing may better illustrate what Jesus means here. His yoke is built for two, and because you're sharing it with Jesus, his yoke lifts you up when you use it instead of weighing you down. You know, one of my favorite pieces of music from The oratorio by George Friedrich Handel is the chorus in the Messiah, "His yoke is easy and his burden is light." And if it didn't take too much time, I'd play it for you this morning. It's one of the hardest pieces to sing as a choir and hard to play as a orchestra member because it's really fast and really busy. It's super complicated. But it also sounds almost like joyous play. I mean, it's one of the happiest pieces of music in the whole oratorio. Complicated and happy. The kind of rest that Jesus offers here is like the carefree way one feels when playing. But it's at the same time a rest that doesn't ignore the fact that life is complicated. I believe Jesus is saying here, no matter how complicated and tense your life is, if you take on my yoke, it will lift you up and not weigh you down. Because it becomes Jesus' responsibility to lighten your load, not yours. But listen, this is only where it begins. Jesus also said, "Learn from me." We need to remember that his teaching reflects back to what has just been presented in Matthew's gospel, namely the Sermon on the Mount. Chapters 5, 6, and 7 of Matthew contain the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus has just provided the most amazing teaching known to humanity and telling his disciples things like, "You have heard it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you so that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous." That's the end of Matthew chapter 5. And passages like this, "Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." That's the end of Matthew chapter 6. And he taught his disciples how to stay in communication with God through giving them the Lord's Prayer, which we will pray later this morning. A model of a way to pray that covers every need that you may have in this human life. It's an amazing prayer. All this is what Jesus means when he says, "Learn from me." Learn. Live in these scriptures. Take them seriously. They are to be lived, not just appreciated from afar or not just studied. I agree with Dallas Willard here. In his book, The Divine Conspiracy, he suggests that most people who call themselves Christian do not take Jesus' teaching seriously. And very few try to live what he taught. It's no wonder we're so restless. If we simply pay attention to what he taught, we will find ourselves lifted up, even when under intense pressure, even when faced with huge responsibilities, even when times are rough. It's all here in Matthew 5, 6, and 7. And Jesus goes on to say, "For I am gentle and humble in heart." To me, this is assurance that Jesus will never barge the door of our lives. He's not a teacher who shames his students into compliance. No, he calls, he invites, and waits. When we respond to Jesus in prayer and in study and in worship and say from our hearts, "Lord, teach me," we will receive what he promises here. Rest for our souls. A deep, refreshing, life-giving rest. One more thing. Notice that nowhere here is there anything about Jesus taking away our struggles or removing us from the battles of life? No, it's more a matter of partnership and being lifted by taking on his yoke. Life will still be difficult. But it's through the difficulty that we often see how truly exciting life can really be. I want to give a little advertisement this morning for what's coming in the next 3 weeks. We're going to look at that question in particular, how good life can be, especially when it's painful, especially when it's dark, especially when it's confusing. I'm going to speak next Sunday. Frank Barisel is going to speak the week after that, and I'm going to speak the third Sunday of this series. It's a series that I've been entitling Excruciating Joy. Jesus is not saying that your life is going to stop being difficult here, but he's saying through it all, we can see how exciting it can be. Jesus invites us, calls us. As we come to his table this morning, he is saying, "Come, all who are weary. Come, all who are hungry for more in life. Come, all who are thirsting for something deeper." All this and more is to be found in Jesus Christ. Join me in prayer.